Did you know we have a Discord community through Patreon? When you support the work we do on How to ADHD, you get access to a global supportive community and other Patreon perks. If you'd like to join us, go to patreon.com/howtoadhd. Hello, brains. I am 30 weeks pregnant today. This is what 30 weeks pregnant looks like on me. It is my first baby. I have ADHD and I'm dealing with pregnancy at the same time, which is an interesting challenge. And a lot of you have been asking questions about how it's going, been curious about things like whether or not I'm still taking my meds, all of that. So I thought I would take the opportunity to do a whole video just answering all of your questions, or as many as I can. We got a lot of questions, so I had our community manager, Harley, compile them into one document. Oh, also, quick caveat, I'm going to be speaking to my personal experience and what I know about pregnancy. I am not an expert on ADHD and pregnancy. I am an expert on ADHD and my pregnancy, but I will be doing a 6-part series with an ADHD expert and answering more questions about pregnancy in general when you have ADHD. If you have questions that I don't answer in this video because it's not relevant to my situation, or I just don't know the answer because I'm not the expert on pregnancy, leave them in the comments below and I will have our expert answer them potentially. Did you go off meds? I adjusted my ADHD medication down to as low a dose as I could possibly function on. And the reason for that is we don't know a lot yet about how ADHD stimulants impact a fetus, but the research that we do have so far is pretty reassuring. I will link to that in the description below. But we do know that stress impacts a fetus negatively. We do know that losing a job or having familial conflict is not great. So I had to kind of weigh the pros and cons of staying on meds versus going off of them. A lot of doctors will recommend going off meds completely because we don't know for sure that these stimulants are safe for a pregnancy. And so it's a situation where they're like, well, better safe than sorry. That would be fine, except we know that there are negative consequences to not treating ADHD as well. And so weighing the consequences of not treating the ADHD against the potential unknowns of taking stimulant medication, it's a really personal decision. And it's one that I talked extensively with my doctors about. But what we came to is let me take as low a dose as possible while also implementing some other strategies and also reducing my workload. I was not expecting myself to write a book while I was pregnant, and I was able to adjust my workload enough that I could go down on my medication and still be okay. If I was still writing the book or doing something really, really cognitively heavy, I might have made a different decision. I might have not gone down so far on my meds, or I might have stayed on my regular dose. I don't know. But in my particular situation, it was the right decision for me to adjust my medication but not go off it completely. Again, I'll link to some of the more recent studies that we have on ADHD and stimulant medication during pregnancy, as well as non-stimulant medication during pregnancy. And I will talk more about it in a future video because it's a really big and important topic. But I think what's important to know is that you don't have to go off your meds when you're pregnant, and that's not always the right choice. It's not always the safest choice. Sometimes it makes sense to stay on your meds. Sometimes it makes sense to adjust them. It's just a really personal decision that you need to make with your doctor. If you have a doctor that is staunchly against staying on ADHD meds at all or tells you you have to go off them, it's worth having a conversation with them and asking them if they are up on the latest research, because they may not be. Which symptoms have improved or gotten worse while pregnant? That one surprised me. I have heard that for some people, their ADHD symptoms actually improve during pregnancy because the estrogen. As estrogen levels rise, dopamine levels rise, and that can actually make it easier. But there were some things that were easier for me and some things that were harder. And some of the things that were harder were because I went down on my medication. I went down to a lower dose. So focusing on writing was much harder, but I don't actually know if that was due to the pregnancy or being on a lower dose of medication. Some of the things that surprised me, though, was emotional dysregulation. I think when there was a lot going on, there were a lot of hormonal changes, it was worse, but then other times it was actually better than usual. But I think it was because I tend to get really caught up in other people's emotions. I'm very empathic. I care a lot. I want to be supportive to other people, but because I'm pregnant, it was kind of a situation where I realized I can't get caught up in other people's emotions because I read that the baby feels what I feel, and I didn't want to pass on the level of distress that I was feeling because somebody else was distressed. And so I went, you know what? This is theirs. This is theirs to feel. I have to try and center. I have to try and stay calm and be in a good headspace and a good emotional space for my future child. I was able to get a little bit of distance from other people's stuff in a way that was really difficult for me before. So that was weirdly helpful. My anxiety also decreased, maybe because of that as well. I've done a better job of saying no to things. I've done a better job of creating a little bit of space between me and what another person is going through, like their storm. I don't get caught up in their storm as much. I can't be in a storm right now. It's better for the baby if I'm chill. So I've prioritized my chill in a way that I never have before. It didn't seem like as much of a priority, and now it is. There was one time that I really wanted pickles, which is, I know it's the most stereotypical like pregnancy thing ever, but I wasn't even craving pickles exactly. I just saw them in the fridge and I wanted them. And then when I couldn't get the lid off, I got really angry and was frustrated. There were a lot of things that were going on that were frustrating already, but like this was kind of the last straw. And I just looked at this jar of pickles and I was like, I will smash this on the floor just to have one pickle. Like, yes, there's gonna be glass everywhere. And most of these pickles I'm not gonna be able to eat, but I'm gonna find like the one pickle that did not have glass in it. And I would pick it up and eat it off the floor. So at which point I went, that's not a good thought. I called my partner at work, which I don't usually do because he's usually in a meeting or even in a therapy session. But I called him and I went, I can't open the jar of pickles. I just want a pickle. Why is this so hard? And he had to walk me through how to open this jar of pickles. So there were definitely times where I was emotionally dysregulated, but overall, I think I was more steady and have been more steady emotionally than usual, partly because I'm not riding this really massive roller coaster of other people's emotions because I'm trying to get some space from that. It was hard to tell if I had pregnancy brain or not because I have working memory impairments anyway. I have ADHD anyway. I think my working memory impairments got worse, especially the further along that I got in pregnancy. I at this point feel comfortable saying that I have pregnancy brain, but it was funny because for so long I couldn't tell. The cool thing is I feel like I was really well prepared for it. Like I have a lot of systems in place already to support my working memory. I am already used to struggling with working memory challenges. So it was, I think, easier for me than it would be for people who were not used to their brain working that way, for my brain to work that way. It's been a little extreme at times, but I can cope with it, I think, better because I had ADHD to begin with. Hyperactivity struggles while pregnant. That's been an interesting challenge. I have ADHD combined type, which means I have the inattentive presentation as well as I qualify for the hyperactive impulsive presentation. Being hyperactive and impulsive while pregnant has been an interesting challenge because what it seems like I should be able to do and then what I can actually do or should do are often two different things. So I'm having to slow down in a way that I really did not expect to have to slow down. And it's really difficult. I get impatient with myself. I don't know, having ADHD, I can get impatient with other people if they're taking too long to get to the end of their story or to do whatever it is that they're doing that I'm waiting for. But now I'm the person I'm waiting on. Like I'm waiting on myself to be able to like tie my shoes, and that takes a lot longer now because of how I have to kind of contort myself to get around my baby belly. So I find myself getting impatient with myself or like wanting to go do things impulsively that I'm not supposed to be doing. So I'll find myself climbing on things or in positions that I probably should not be in and have to remind myself like, yeah, that's not what you're supposed to do. Like, you're not supposed to do that while pregnant. That's not safe. Part of that is because there's a hormone called relaxin that your body produces while you're pregnant that makes everything a little bit looser to try and prepare your body for labor, but it makes you a little clumsier too. Your center of gravity changes. Like my balance was already not great. It's getting less great as time goes on. Yeah, that's been an interesting challenge. Do you have a doula? I do have a doula. This pregnancy, I'm trying to have a corrective experience. Every other time in my life that I've experienced trauma, gone through something that was potentially traumatic, which pregnancy and childbirth can be, I have not had the supports in place that I needed. In fact, those have typically been the times in my life where I had the least support around me. So my needs were far greater than usual, and I had much less support than usual. When my mom died, that was during COVID, so nobody could come over and sit with me while I was grieving, and that was really tough. There were several other instances in my life where I went through some sort of trauma and I couldn't talk about it or I didn't have the support that I needed. And so one of the things that I've intentionally chosen to do is have a corrective experience and put a lot of support around myself now. I have an OBGYN. I have a doula. I am considering getting a postpartum doula. Even though it feels excessive to me and like a little bit of a luxury, I'm trying to recognize I've never had an experience in my life where I was going through a really tough thing where I had the amount of support that I needed. After a previous surgery, I was in so much pain and I didn't have the support that I needed, but I also wasn't okay enough to put those supports in place at that point. So this time I'm putting a lot of supports in place ahead of time, and I figured I'll pull those supports away as I'm ready to let go of them, as opposed to going in thinking I'll be fine, this is fine, and then realizing I need a greater level of support. Yeah, long story short, I do have a doula. I'm very excited about it. She's wonderful and also does massage therapy. So I am getting prenatal massages, and the person giving me prenatal massages is also a doula. So that's going to be really, really nice. Have you started thinking about creating routines to help yourself better navigate the first year/baby phase? Yes, I have. I know that I want to be around and present for my baby. I also know that what's important for an infant is that they have a caretaker who is responsive to their needs. If I have the baby around all the time, I will either not be able to focus on work, or I will not be able to be responsive to the baby's needs. And so I decided to figure out childcare for after I return from maternity leave so that I can focus on work when I'm at work. I mean, theoretically, right? Like, we'll see how it actually turns out. And then when I get home, I can be fully present and responsive to the baby's needs. Because I know myself. I know that it would be really hard for me to focus on work if there was a baby in the room. I also know that if I did manage to focus on work, I could end up in hyperfocus and not notice that my baby needs something. So my partner and I have talked a lot about how we want to handle it. His mom lives nearby, which is great. She's decided that she's going to watch the baby once a week for us, which is wonderful. The thing that I haven't figured out yet, and I'm curious if those of you who are parents have any thoughts on this, what does your routine look like in terms of when do you spend time with your kid that's like dedicated time? Is it in the morning? Is it before bed? I know like bedtime routines are a thing. I'm sure that there are a lot of things that I'm not thinking of, and I'm actually really nervous about that. Just having ADHD going, what am I forgetting? What am I not thinking about that's going to pop up like, oh yeah, and by the way, you're going to spend 2 hours a day doing this that you didn't anticipate. It's going to be interesting trying to manage my time, because I feel like already my days are really busy and really full, and then you add a kid into the mix and suddenly there's a lot more on your plate. How does that work just functionally? I don't know yet. I guess I will figure it out. But so far what I've figured out is when I'm going to be staying home with the kid, when I'm going to be starting them with childcare and going back to work. I think that we're also going to try and make it so that maybe I take care of the baby in the morning and my partner is more responsible for the baby at night. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I need to do a little bit more preparation on that is what I'm learning. Do you ever get overstimulated just being in your own body with the physical discomfort of pregnancy? Oh my God, yes. So sensory sensitivities are a thing, and so is difficulty focusing on things when you're uncomfortable. I'm trying to focus or to do anything, and my body's uncomfortable. And there's been several points during the pregnancy where it's been so bad that I can't ignore it. My heartburn is really, really bad. And so it's really hard to do anything when my heartburn is bad. Thankfully, like my doctor said it was okay to take Tums. And then when that stopped working as effectively, Pepcid AC. It's also just weird, like the sensations in my belly, like now that I can feel the baby moving, that's super distracting. I'll be in the middle of talking to somebody, and if the baby starts moving, like there is no way that I have any idea what they're saying because the sensation is just kind of overpowering. There have also been really like uncomfortable and even painful sensations, and really early too. So at the beginning of the second trimester, even before I had gained a lot of weight or I was showing really, my back was really bad. Like my SI joint was such that I couldn't walk. There were times I had to crawl up the stairs because I couldn't take a step because of what I found out was SI joint instability due to the relaxin, the hormone that makes all your everything relax while you're pregnant. I've learned to avoid things that are sensory bad. I've learned how to take care of my body as it usually is in a way that I really don't have a lot of pain on a day-to-day basis, but it's not really a choice when you're pregnant to like not be in pain. It's just like, what kind of pain do you want? And even then you don't exactly get to choose. I have heartburn right now. I need to go take, when is the last time I took meds? That's a problem. That's another big challenge that I've been dealing with, is being able to keep track of when I've taken what medication so that I make sure that the meds I'm supposed to take on a regular basis I take, and the things that I'm not supposed to take too often, like antacids, that I don't overdo it. Yeah, I don't think I can take them again yet. All right, I'm going to suck it up. Do you have a sleep plan figured out for the newborn phase? I thought I had a sleep plan figured out for the newborn phase. It turns out I do not. I'm going to breastfeed. So my sleep plan was, I thought, well, I'll just, I'll breastfeed and then I'll pump. And then every other night I can get enough sleep. I can sleep through the night and my partner can just give the baby a bottle. So that was the plan, is like one night I sleep and he stays up and takes care of the baby in the middle of the night. And then the next day he gets to sleep and I get up in the middle of the night. And then I found out in breastfeeding classes that that's not how that works, that even if he is the one to get up and give the baby a bottle, I will probably still have to get up and express milk because of how that system works. So yeah, I did have a plan, but now the plan is, I think, what is more common, which is you sleep when the baby sleeps. That's what I hear. We'll see how it goes. I'm very curious about that, especially if I do continue to take my medication through breastfeeding, which I'll have to figure out where I'm at with that. It'll be an interesting challenge because I generally have a hard time napping if I'm on my meds, but they'll be really tired, right? So maybe. Have you developed any organizational plans for her room or the house that are ADHD friendly? I talk about this a lot. I'm a big fan of having things at the point of performance where you're going to need them. We have a fairly small place for starting a family, and it's not very well laid out. I think at some point we're going to have to move. There's a lot of townhomes in Seattle, so everything's built instead of like this, it's all built up and down. So it can be a fairly small place, but have multiple stories, which is our situation. The guest room is on the bottom floor and our master suite is on the top floor. And in the middle is the kitchen. So there's a lot of stairs between the master suite and the guest room. So I was like, I'm not going to wake up in the middle of the night and trust myself to safely get down 2 flights of stairs on very little sleep. So we decided to put the baby in the closet. We have a walk-in, it's a small walk-in closet right next to our master bedroom. And so we turned that into the nursery. And I'll share pictures here. There's not a ton of space. We did a lot of work to try and find stuff that would fit. So there's a glider, and that's to comfort me, I think, as much as the kid, because rocking can be very soothing. There's a bassinet, and it's one that you can push down the edge of and like pull the baby out easily. And then there's a dresser / changing table. And then there's also, like, we put a couple of bookshelves with some books so that when I'm bored or want to read to the baby, I can easily, from the glider, reach those things. So we have everything ready to go at the point of performance. I wanted everything as close together and as accessible to where I would be as possible. I knew theoretically it would be lovely to have a beautiful nursery in the spare bedroom, but I also knew the realities of me having ADHD and like being clumsy and stumbling around in the middle of the night up and down 2 flights of stairs. And I was like, that's not going to work. So I gave up my dream of having a beautiful, expansive baby's nursery with like a gorgeous wardrobe and all those things, and made a closet work. How do you even while pregnant with ADHD? I just can't imagine how much worse my chronic fatigue, chronic pain, bad brain days, executive function, and time management will suffer. That's been one of the frustrating things, is if you have chronic pain and you have ADHD, you have bad pain days and bad brain days. And sometimes you have a good brain day and a bad pain day. And so it's still hard to get stuff done. It's been like that with pregnancy. Sometimes I'm having a really good brain day, but I'm having a bad pain day. And so it's hard for me to get stuff done, or I'm exhausted that day. Like the fatigue is so bad that even though my brain's sharp, my body can't handle it. It's been very humbling, actually, because before this I didn't really experience chronic pain a whole lot, except for after surgery once. There were some things that I did. You can see in our video about chronic pain, I talk about that experience. Thankfully, the times that I have had really bad pain, I've been able to address it and figure out how to make it go away. So it's been an interesting experience having an extended period of time where I can't. There's things that I can do to kind of relieve the pain, sort of, but I'm not in control of that. My body is. The things that my body is going through are the things my body is going through, and I don't have a whole lot of control over it. I can manage it at best. So yeah, having to manage bad brain days and bad pain days is also an interesting challenge. How open are you to people feeling your belly? I didn't actually show that much at first, and I am a person who likes a lot of touch. I like a lot of sensory input, and I was really lonely over the pandemic. So I could not wait to show and have people touch my belly. But I think society has, in general, gotten a little bit better about respecting people's personal space. And so there wasn't a whole lot of people trying to touch my belly. So like, I almost want to go find shirts that like invite people like, hey, yeah, you can touch my belly. I don't know how I would feel about it if I was in a place where I really didn't want it to happen and people were doing it automatically, but like I am sadly deprived of the belly touching. I'm not getting as much belly touching as I thought I would, partially because it took me so long to show and partially because I work by myself. I'm open to it. I really like it when my partner touches my belly, especially. It's validating. I don't know. Like I like touch. Oh, hi. Wait, is that a kick? Yeah, it's a kick because she's in the right position now. So like her kicks are higher now. How has being pregnant changed your outlook on self-care? Being pregnant helped me get over my wall of awful on dental care. I did a video talking about that here because that's important if you're going to be pregnant. It provided an extra kick of motivation. It also helped me take care of myself a little bit more mentally and emotionally in terms of prioritizing my well-being over caring for others. Sometimes I want to care for other people, but sometimes I do that at my expense, and it can be very distressing for me because I'm a very empathic person. And so it was very helpful for me to realize I'm wanting to take care of a grown adult, but I'm responsible for taking care of a child. In terms of caretaking, the child takes priority because they don't have the ability to self-regulate yet. The adult theoretically does. If you're dealing with anxiety/fear, how are you coping with that? I really want to have a baby soon, but I'm sometimes still crippled by the fear of giving birth and the general idea of another person growing inside my body. The hardest part for me is, other than the fear of like, am I going to be a good enough mom, is the uncertainty of the labor itself. Like, I don't know how that's going to go. That uncertainty is tough. It's also complicated by the fact that I have a pregnancy complication. The baby's fine. Baby's doing great. But where the placenta implanted is not so great. It's kind of blocking the exit. So I have something called complete placenta previa, which means that my placenta is completely covering the cervix, or, you know, where the baby would come out. So I am going to have a C-section. I had not planned for this. I had planned for a natural labor. I really wanted to get my body in shape and be able to see what my body could do. And I wanted that experience of giving birth naturally. I don't know if I would have chosen it the second time, but I really wanted to have that experience at least once in my life. And so it was really tough having that choice taken away. I'm also at risk for something called vasoprevia. If there's a baby blood vessel that runs over the cervix, you actually have to go to the hospital and stay and be monitored and have an even earlier C-section. So if I have vasoprevia, which I will find out in a couple of days, I will have to go to the hospital probably that day and then stay for like a month and then have a C-section at 35 weeks. So it's really tough for me right now to sit in the uncertainty of I could be fine and be able to stay home and work. And yeah, it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't the type of birth that I wanted, but at least I know what to expect and I know when that birth would happen. Or I might be in the hospital for a month and have to give birth even 2 weeks earlier and not know if the baby's going to need to go to NICU and not know how she's going to do and not know, like, there's just so many unknowns. There's so much uncertainty. And it's driving me up the wall. I'm having a hard time focusing at work and doing a whole lot of anything because I don't know. I don't know what's going on right now. The way the doctor explained it is if I have vasoprevia, where the baby's blood vessels going across the cervix, I'd have to be in the hospital so they can monitor me and be able to take action quickly if needed. What's helping me is knowing that if you get the right care, then it'll be okay. The doctor was really great when he found out that I had complete placenta previa and was at risk for vasoprevia. He came into the room and he drew me a diagram and he's like, so this is your baby and this is what's going on with your placenta and this is the potential of what could happen. Now, I know you're gonna go home and Google this. I loved that. He wasn't like, don't Google it, it's all wrong. He was like, I know you're gonna go home and Google this, which of course I am. But when you Google it, you're gonna find some really scary information online of what can happen and how badly things can go wrong. And like, you know, usually like babies die and all this stuff. But that's if we don't catch it. The good news is we caught it. So as difficult as it is for me to sit with the uncertainty, I'm really glad that I went to my prenatal care because I feel fine. It seems like everything's going really well to me. And I wouldn't have known about this risk if I hadn't gone to these routine prenatal checkups that kind of felt like, okay, what's the point? If I hadn't gone to those, like, I wouldn't have known this. But because I did, I do. You know, there's a lot to be anxious about with pregnancy. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong and you don't have a lot of control over it. For me, it's been a really good exercise in practicing sitting with uncertainty. What research have you been doing? Knowing you, I know you have, to prepare, and what have you found helpful? Oh yes, let's talk about research. It's been my absolute hyper-focus, pregnancy. Trying to get pregnant, I learned about all the hormones and the cycles and what helps and what doesn't and all of that. I found an app called Premom really helpful in learning to track cycles. I also use Google Scholar and PubMed and read research papers and stuff. If a doctor is asking me to make a decision, I usually will ask them their opinion, but I'll also read the research and see if there's any research specific to ADHD and that. But in terms of just like casually day to day, there's an app that I use called Sprout. I really like it. It shows you what the baby looks like at that point in development. And there's a daily kick that gives you a fact about pregnancy. I also signed up for classes. There's Tinyhood, which does virtual classes, and they're fairly inexpensive. But after a couple months of not actually watching any of the courses, I realized I needed the accountability. So I signed up for a virtual class. So I've been taking classes on labor, breastfeeding. We're about to take an infant CPR class as well. I am learning all of the things about pregnancy. It is taking everything in me to not just make all of my videos about pregnancy stuff now. Like, I'm super nerding out about it. It's really fun to like be learning about something besides my ADHD, and I have so much stuff that I could info dump about. I'm refraining in this video because this is just mostly me answering your questions, but I will be doing a 6-part series with an expert on ADHD and pregnancy, and I'm sure I will info dump a little bit there about stuff I've learned. I'm sure she will info dump about stuff that she knows. We're both going to talk about our personal experience. It'll be great. Has Chloe helped as a service dog in different/new ways during pregnancy? She's gotten a little bit more protective of me, I've noticed, which is sweet. Other than that, she pretty much does all her normal service dog things. But last night, I don't know if she had any awareness of what she was doing, but she climbed on top of my belly in the middle of the night and slept on me in a really comforting way. And when I woke up in the morning, the baby had moved into the position that I needed the baby to move in. The baby's now in a head down position. She's in a good position for birth. And usually when a baby moves head down like that, they stay that way. I have no idea if Chloe had any intuition as to like, I really needed that to happen, because it's just been the last couple of days I've really been like, okay, this kid is like in the wrong position and it's hurting me, and I need that to change. Unintentionally or intentionally, I'm pretty sure that Chloe moved the kid into the right position just by how she was laying on my belly. So that was kind of cool. I think because I'm not getting enough belly rubs, I taught Chloe belly. So if I say belly, she's asleep right now, but if she's near me and I say belly, she comes and lays her head right on my belly, which is really sweet. Belly. Good job. There's a great account on Instagram that I follow called Dog Meets Baby that talks about how to introduce your dog to your baby. If anybody's in that position where you have a dog and you're going to have a baby and you'd like support with that, I found that account really helpful as well. How did you decide if you wanted children? Did you always know, or did you consider not? I did consider not having kids. I experienced a lot of trauma in my childhood, and I knew that I didn't want to bring a kid into that kind of environment. It was really important to me to wait until I was financially stable and had some savings and found a partner who was as committed to raising a child actively as I was. And I found that. I knew that it was something that could go either way, especially after Raf and I broke up a few years ago. It was also like really tough for us to get pregnant. And so there was definitely the possibility that I wouldn't have had kids, but I felt comfortable having kids because I'm in a safe and stable environment now. And because I understand myself and my challenges well enough that I feel like I can do a good job of raising a kid. There was definitely a time in my life where I was not in a position to have a child. One of the interesting things now that I'm up against is knowing that I could have had this life that was child-free and wondering if I'm going to regret it. I want to make sure that I'm able to give my kid the attention and care that they deserve. That was the deciding factor. And I think the answer is yes, but it's a little bit scary going, but I don't know. Like, I could get into the situation and realize like, oh, wow, I'm not actually well suited to this. I don't think that'll happen, but it's a possibility and it makes me a little nervous. But yeah, for me personally, that was the deciding factor. Like, would I be able to give this kid a safe and stable home which for a lot of my life, I would not have been able to say yes to that question. How about tips for a soon-to-be ADHD dad on looking after the mom during labor without getting too excited/hyper? I love that. That's so sweet. I mean, the fact that you're asking that question is already fantastic. I don't know. I can tell you what my partner and I are doing, which is recognizing like he is very sensitive and emotional and might get overloaded during labor. And so what we've done is actually gotten him a doula as well. So I have my doula who's there to look after me, and then he has his own doula to help support him in supporting me and also be aware of if it's something where he needs to leave the room. She can be the one to say, hey, like, let's take a break. Let's head outside for a little bit. It sounds excessive, but again, like the position that I'm in right now is I'm trying to have there be a corrective experience, not just for me, but for him too, because he wants to support me. And we've already been through a situation where the level of support that I needed was too great, because when my mom died, it was during COVID and I was leaning on him really heavily for support. And so he has this experience of me going through something really difficult and traumatic and him not being able to support me in the ways that I needed to support. He can have somebody support him in supporting me. I know that that's not a realistic possibility for everybody, but having some sort of plan for recognizing like there might be times where you need to offer specific kinds of support, and deciding on that type of support ahead of time is really helpful. How are you actually doing and feeling right now? Right now, I'm good. The baby, I think, just today got in the right position, and that took so much pressure off of my mid-back. Every morning that I've been waking up for at least a couple weeks, probably longer, my back has been really hurting. And I saw my prenatal massage therapist / doula this last week, and she said because the baby was transverse, she was laying sideways like this, that was actually shoving organs out of the way a little bit more and like creating potentially more discomfort than I would have otherwise felt. And I was like, well, that's good to know. Thankfully, this morning, she seems to have flipped to a vertical position and she's head down. Somehow that took a lot of pressure off of my mid-back. So right now, other than the heartburn, I'm actually feeling pretty good. All right. That's a lot of questions that I answered. I'm sure that people have more questions. Drop them in the comments below. If you have questions about ADHD and pregnancy in general, or want tips, tricks, strategies, advice, that's what our 6-part series is going to be for. This is just a quick update. I'm doing good. Baby's doing great. There is a pregnancy complication, but it's something that my team is on top of, and it'll be okay. However it goes, I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be fine. This is fine. Oh no. Thank you to my brain advocates and all my Patreon brains. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. You are a lot of the reason why I felt comfortable having a child, because I have this steady source of income. I know that I will be able to take care of this child and be able to pay for childcare, which is very expensive in Seattle. And because of you, I was able to make this choice for myself. If I didn't have that stable income, if I didn't have your support, I don't know that I would have made this choice. And I'm really glad that I was able to. So thank you so much. Getting emotional. You are a big part of the safety and stability that I needed to have in place to be able to feel comfortable moving forward with having a kid. So thank you. Like, subscribe, click all the things, and I will see you next video. Bye, brains.